diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gotta be biblical.
We didn't say who was going to do the intro, but I'll do it. Welcome to Midweek Metals with Matt Geiger. Quick little show today, 30 to 40 minutes. Matt has got a lot on, and I understand why your phone's blowing up, sir. How are you, Matt? How's your week been?
I'm doing good, man. Just overworked, but happy to do it. You know, it's like I'm up at 5 a.m. on calls by 6. You know, probably don't get done till 6 or 7 at night, and it's a lot of work, you know, but it's fun. You know, I get a chance to deal with your viewers. You know, we just brought in some business with you guys, which is awesome. You know, just trying to have fun with it, you know? Yeah,
great. Well, obviously there's a lot going on in the world, but the main thing I want to ask you is we had a massive drop in silver, didn't we? It's going up again. What do you think? What was that about?
I mean, it's just more, you know, attempt at getting the price down by obviously the fake silver contracts and trying to protect that short position. People, you know, these big banks are trying to get out of it. I love the big drops because to me, it's a buying opportunity for new people. You know, even people that bought in, you know, the 120s, not the end of the world. You know, yeah. It's, I think prices will bounce right back. If anything, it just allows people that maybe were kind of sitting on the fence to get it maybe a little bit cheaper. And, you know, I'm very happy about that.
Do you think these, the dark side is still in control of much of this, or the white hats? Because we were talking the other day that potentially, you know, people think they've missed the boat, and it could, in the whole scheme of things, bring the price back down so more people can get on board, because we do believe that the white hats are confiscating a lot of the money through all Trump's executive orders and stuff anyway. So maybe they're losing the ability to engage in this financial war anyway.
I would think that the white hats are in control. I mean, I think that they're very much in control of the uptick. I think the uptick in silver price from, where was it, in the 30s or the 40s, you know, back over the summer, it's got to be the white hats. I think it's, you know, we know that this whole thing is about timing. And of course, with the bank's exposure to short positions, that's a great way for Trump to force the hand of the banks to have to capitulate. I think really what it means is these banks had to capitulate to Trump. He basically had the gun to their heads and said, hey, you know, probably a backdoor deal was made with, you know, Jamie Dimon and, you know, whoever the CEO is of Bank of America, Citibank. My guess is he says, look, price of silver is going to go up. We're going to destroy your shorts. You guys, you know, here's my terms and conditions. What I'll do is I'll offload these positions to the Federal Reserve. They'll absorb the losses. We'll keep your bank solvent, at least for the time being. And that way, the American people that have bank accounts and retirement funds in these places, they're not the ones holding the empty bag at the end of this, because that's what the banks do, right? The banks, look at 2008. You know, just look at how that went down. We're probably going to see something very similar to that. And that was, okay, one day we wake up, I think it was 9/11, right? Go figure. We wake up and all of a sudden, you know, the banks need $30 trillion or else, right? And you have 24 hours to do it. Otherwise, the entire banking system is going to collapse overnight. Right. It's a pretty tough negotiation strategy. Obviously, at that time, we didn't have a Donald Trump. We had George Bush, and then we had Obama. Obviously, people behind this type of stuff, they know what's going on. They knew about the subprime mortgages. They knew all about it. There's no secret. The banks knew all about it. And that's what they do. They hold a gun to our head. So I think what Trump likes to do is he likes to use the move that you're going to use against him or against us, we the people. He's going to use that against them this time. So he's a hardline negotiator. I think everything will be fine. I think he's trying to create as much of a soft landing as he can with, the banking collapse, whatever that looks like. I don't think everybody's going to lose all their money, but certainly people, with exposure, they're going to lose something. People are going to lose something, and it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because we always look at certain things. Like I think last show we were talking about how with the IRS, like how there are professional CPAs, accountants, and we were saying, what if you spun that narrative? What about if you stopped helping the IRS and the central bank by doing people's taxes and advising people why it's voluntary, right? Like what kind of a tide? Well, I think in a way it's similar with the banks. Wouldn't it be great if everybody realized, you know what? I'm taking my money out of the system and I'm putting it in precious metals. I'm flipping over my IRAs and my 401ks. I mean, some of that has to do with the stock market, right? But where you have, like my IRA was in a bank, it was affiliated with a banking institution. And it would be so great to see the power of the people do those kinds of things, because our system is going towards the precious metal backed, asset backed, whether it be, blockchain or it be, the value of our money going forward out of the fiat system. And people don't realize how much power they have, to
Totally
implode these systems.
100%. And isn't it interesting, and maybe talking to the people that have retirement accounts, isn't it interesting that first and foremost, your financial advisor doesn't even have the ability to sell physical gold and physical silver.
That's right.
Matter of fact, they don't want you even buying the paper gold and paper silver, because to them, there's no real commission in it. There's nothing appealing to them about it. So they want to move you away from this stuff. And they're going to show you, charts and historical references of, oh, this fund did this and this fund did that. What I've learned, I think the biggest lesson I've learned in this whole great awakening, whatever you want to call it, is the whole system's built on fraud.
Yeah. The
whole system is fraudulent. I mean, when you hear about Congress having, 12 or 13 money printing machines that are completely unaccounted for, that no one knows about, and then you look at the fraud in Minnesota and all the other fraud that's been coming to light, and all the payoffs and kickbacks. I mean, the entire system is worthless. It's literally running based on the very perception that we are the United States, we're the greatest country in the world, blah 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 blah. Quite literally, it's our minds and our thought processes that are allowing this system to run. So if you change the hearts and minds of people, this system can no longer run, because you won't have the confidence to back it. They say that the full faith and confidence in the U.S. government, right, is our money. That's exactly what it is. It's the full faith and confidence. Well, what happens when you lose that faith? What happens when you lose that confidence? You have nothing. And what Trump is going to do is he's going to catch us in this new system. As we fall out of this current system, he's going to catch us in this gold and silverback system. And that's why prices really do need to increase. We need to see $20,000 gold, $30,000 gold. We need to see $1,000 silver, $5,000 silver. We need to see that, because that's what's going to allow us to transition from this fictitious, figment of our imaginations into something real, tangible, and that has real oversight and real rules and regulations. It's just a matter of when. That it could happen tomorrow. It could happen a year from now. It could happen 10 years from now. We just don't know. But clearly, I think the precious metals it's a no-brainer. It's not really even an investment strategy. It's a currency conversion.
100%.
It's. I don't look at gold or silver as an investment. If you did, I mean, historically speaking, it's actually been a very poor investment, and I'm the first one to say that. It's a currency conversion when you understand that the whole world is fiat. This fiat system's going to fail. It always does. Okay, you want to talk about historical charts and records? Let me show you all the civilizations that had fiat currencies, and let's see where they are now, right? They don't exist, because it fails 100% of the time. And I think when people start thinking about their monetary system and the stability of their monetary system, as opposed to rate of return and chasing, as many gains as they can get, I think that's where people will start to make progress in understanding gold and silver is the place to be.
And it is a solid store of value, isn't it? But rather than sort of like putting buying a Bitcoin 10 years ago and seeing that rocket like that. Gold and silver won't. Well, we're hoping it will actually, but it's predominantly. Would you rather have, you know, a fiat note or a piece of gold? Right?
And if I even just may say in here, and I'm a big believer in the cryptocurrency space, but look what's happening now with Bitcoin. Not only is it going down, but Dan Pena. I don't know if anybody watches Dan Pena. Kind of a funny guy. He does some interesting business. He does something called roll-ups. Where anyway, I won't get into what he does, but I think he's a guy who understands the world around him. He's an oil man, so the oil men tend to understand the reality of things, right? Because energy pretty much runs the world. He even said if you understood who created Bitcoin, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And Dan Pena always wears a really nice suit.
Yeah. He lives out. He lives out. He's an American guy from Los Angeles, but he lived out.
His words, does he?
I think he lives in like Ireland or Scotland, in some castle. He's kind of he's a funny guy, but he said you wouldn't be able to sleep at night if you knew who created Bitcoin. And now there's rumors. I mean, I don't know how true this is. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but they're saying that Satoshi Nakamoto, the guy who created Bitcoin, was actually Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
And that would make a lot of sense because Bitcoin would seem to me that that's probably the trafficking currency, right? Paying in Bitcoin, non-traceable money. That would make a lot of sense to me. So you got to be very careful with these cryptocurrencies too. I think, Scott and I talk a lot about XRP. I think XRP probably is going to be a good one. Theta Fuel, XLM, the ISO coins are probably a good bet. But other than that, I mean, I think they're just purely, I think most of them are going to, 99% of them are going to turn out to be scams.
Yeah. It's, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to say there's a lot of references coming out about Bitcoin in these Epstein files, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think
it almost verifies what Pena said years ago about Bitcoin, right? And then you realize, you think child trafficking and all the horrible things that they do with these children, right? That would make sense. You wouldn't be able to sleep at night. That to me, that it starts, the puzzle pieces start to come together.
100%. What I wanted to also say is what's really,
picture, Lisa?
Yes. Yeah. And here's what maybe a lot of people don't realize. Like we've all been talking about XRP. We've been talking about how it's going to be the rails of the system. We've been talking about how, it's going to enable the movement of money. Corporations going to use it, financial institutions. But here's the thing in real time, like I have, and I might've said this before, but I have an assistant in the Philippines. So we can't use Venmo, right? I'm not gonna do a wire transfer to her. So, there's an international app that I use called Remitly. And so I started paying her like 2 years ago when she started working for me, 2.5 years ago. And it was like a 5-day thing. And then now it's like your money will be there in 2 hours. So how is that possible, right? It's possible because we're already transferring over and using the system. People don't realize when money moves quicker, they just assume, oh, okay, like they're not thinking about it. But because we've been so used to them, taking a number of days so they could do whatever they do with our money, right? But now this is happening, people aren't connecting the dots. Like, why? How come? What's going on? What's happening behind the scenes? Why is this happening this quickly? What's changed? And hopefully people will, at some point start to recognize that things like XRP is not like a lot of these other cryptos.
And furthermore, what I love about and if you look at what you just said, what I love about it is notice it's happening from a grassroots movement. In other words, you didn't go to a financial advisor and he recommended this app to you. No, you discovered it on your own and you're using this in your own life and you're paying an individual for their time and labor.
Yeah.
And you're doing it through something that you found on your own. Somebody and that's what this is really about. It's this is the definition of the return of free markets. Right? We don't have free markets. Everybody blames capitalism. It's really we've really been living under socialism when you think about it. We're already socialist. But of course, they blame, they call us capitalism. So the socialism, they can blame the socialism on capitalism. I mean, it's a brilliant technique that these guys do. Manipulating minds and terminology, you name it. But I think what we're seeing is we're starting to see the return of capitalism at the grassroots level. And you're going to see a lot more of these types of apps and cryptos pop up. I think the real cryptos to buy into haven't been announced yet. I think that there's going to be certain needs that have to be filled in the coming months and the coming years. Those needs are going to reflect the needs of a free market, and we're going to move into them on our own free will. And that's the way business should be run. That's the way everything should be done. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
So I had a question for you. Like where exactly is silver today? I haven't had a chance to look at that.
Silver right now, let's take a look. I saw it about 88 and some change. So it's up about two bucks from yesterday. Let me refresh my ticker here. 87.09 is the spot price.
Yeah. So, to Stu's point earlier, we're seeing a little bit of up. I mean, it's not like up and down, but we're seeing it from where it was when it rolled up to 117 and, landed at 107. And so, I mean, did you notice any trends when it started to dip a little bit? Like, were you getting more calls from people who got sparked and said, hey, this might be a good time to turn, to roll over my 401k or my IRA? Like, are you noticing the trends that people are becoming more aware?
No doubt about it. I mean, I think buying at any of these prices, whether you bought at 120 or you're buying at 100 or whatever, just realize when the price went down, what I noticed on my dealer sheet is that the premiums went up. So, they could drop the price down to 50. You'll just pay a $50 premium on top of that 50 to get a piece of silver, right? That's how it works at this point. Because the physical market that I work in, right? When you look at spot price, that's the paper market. That's the commodities price of silver. That's if you were to go to your advisor and say, I want 1,000 ounces of silver. They hand you a certificate and say, congratulations. With me, I send you that 1,000 ounces to your doorstep, and you're going to have to, break your back to bring those in and store them in a safe place. So what you're really seeing is you're starting to see the paper price separate from the physical price. And dealers like myself and the wholesale market, we understand that, when they dip the price down to, whatever it was down to 77 or whatever, we understand that this is just purely market manipulation. Right. So we're just going to charge more in premium. They can push the price down to whatever they want. You think I'm going to go sell my inventory at a loss, knowing that this is market manipulation and some bankers on a keyboard, clicking a mouse and dropping the price? Because that's what they're doing. It's the click of a mouse. Right. So the physical market is, I think, going to continue to go much, much higher. And don't really care what spot price says. The price of silver eventually is going to be the price of silver, and it's going to be dictated by guys like myself and companies like myself and the wholesale, really more specifically the wholesale market. And people are going to have to just pay whatever it is to get. And if silver goes up to $200-300, well, you might see another $100 or $200 premium on top of that just to obtain it. That's what people don't factor in. In the physical market, you pay a premium. Yeah. And when the silver supply dwindles and there is a real scarcity, and, we could see some real shortages here soon. There's not yet. I know there's rumors of it, but there's no shortage just yet. There's delays, and that's just, us being able to, we have so many orders that, it might take 5 minutes to put it into a box, right? But when you have 10,000 orders, right, that might take you a couple of days just to get through that 10,000 orders, right? So that's really the delay right now. It's not the supply, but I think the supply here very soon is going to start to dwindle, and that's where you're going to really start to see, I think, massive premium increases on top of spot price.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about this fluctuation of price is really waking people up to the manipulation, isn't it? Because it just doesn't make sense how something physical like that can go up, down.
You hit the nail on the head. I used to talk about this stuff years ago because I understood the manipulation years ago, and the funniest part about it is it's great. It was great cover for the banks because I look back and I'm like, it's so convoluted to explain this to somebody to understand, hey, this is extremely undervalued based on these paper kind. And you start to explain this to people and they're like, they don't internalize, they don't understand it, and now that silver's finally up and everybody's talking about the manipulation, now people actually are hearing about it, right? How they suppress the price of silver. Now people want to buy it, so the people that understood it years ago are now benefiting from really looking into this stuff and buying silver at, 15, 20, 25. That's where I bought most of my silver.
Me too.
And if the people that understood, okay, it might take some time for this stuff to take off, but it's sure as hell going to take off at some point. I mean, why did, I always would talk to people about, the Hunt brothers in the 1980s. Why is everybody trying to corner the silver market? The Hunt brothers in the 80s, JP Morgan in the 2000s. Why? What do they see in silver? There's a lot more to silver than I think people even understand. As a matter of fact, if you listen to Cliff High, you guys know Cliff High.
Yeah.
One of the most brilliant guys and one of the most fun people to listen to. He was talking about an episode, maybe this is probably a couple of years ago. He says, when you combine silver isotope 107 and combine it with silver isotope 109 in certain percentages, you start to get electric properties and physical properties that physicists today don't even understand.
Wow.
So could silver be the segue into anti-gravitational craft? Shit, maybe.
Yeah.
There's some type of undisclosed magic that exists within silver, and it'll be fun to see what comes about, having nothing to even do with coin or money or any of that. What real industrial purposes does it have? There might be something
really far out
of this world. Yeah,
literally. I want to I'm sorry, I don't want to lose this thought. You mentioned about the manipulation, right? We've been talking about the manipulation. Here's what's really interesting. If silver prices have been manipulated, right? Let's look at it as a metaphor, because you've got the stock market, right? And I think a lot of people believe, because we've been taught this, right? We've always taught this in school, right? Supply and demand. And when the demand goes up, then the price goes up, right? That whole system. Okay. And I'm not going to argue that. I'm not a brainiac enough to, however, if they could do this to the silver market and have done it, right? Anybody with a thinking brain should start to apply that to the stock market and say, wait a minute, this whole idea of supply and demand is probably a bunch of bullshit, because somebody is also manipulating that. So you can't look at things on that, from that perspective anymore. And that's a hard one for people to grasp.
100%. This goes back to what we're talking about with free markets. We don't have free markets. It's all rigged. It's just, it's a club and you ain't in it, right? As George Carlin said.
Right.
And if you're in the club, you know what trades to make. You know exactly where to place your money. Your money's always going to grow. You're never going to lose, right? You're going to have the stock trading record of Nancy Pelosi. You're going to do phenomenally. I look back at I remember a couple of years ago when that AMC stock and GameStop stock that all the the big hedge funds were shorting. I don't believe the story, but a group of Reddit users got together, right, aka Q Team, and they went long on it, and everybody started buying up the stock, and these hedge funds were losing tens of billions of dollars. And they called up the Robinhood and the different financial companies, and they said, you put an end to this. And they did. They just literally told them to stop allowing people so there's no free markets. Right. When you look at that, they put a stop to, a loop in the matrix, right? They figured out a loop in the matrix, and they immediately, it's like the men in suits in the Matrix. They come running, when there's the disturbance in the Matrix, all the what's his name? The guy with the glasses, they all show up. Yeah, they all show up to the scene to correct the glitch, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did, right? They were just correcting the glitch in the Matrix. So, I couldn't agree with you more. And, furthermore, what Trump did in his first term, there was massive inflation happening during Trump's first term. But I guess what he did is he figured out a way to take that inflation and actually put the inflation into the stock market, as opposed to the grocery store shelves. So it completely inflated the stock. Stock market is what, like 48,000? The stock market should be at like 10, 12,000. No business being at 48,000.
Yeah. Okay.
And effectively what he did was, instead of seeing it on the grocery store shelves, like we're seeing now, right? Massive inflation, because, the politicians, they never want you to see it in the grocery store, because when you see it in the grocery store, that's when the average person starts to talk up about it, right? They start to speak up about it. So what Trump did is he massively inflated the stock market, which was great for people in the stock market, right? Remember when he came into office, I mean, that thing went kaboom, that thing went to the moon. So now, what I would expect is a massive, massive market correction. So if we're at 48,000, we're probably going to correct to 8 or 10,000 by the time this is said and done. So this is what I tell people that are in the market is it's like, lock in those gains. You've made all this money. You've done great. Lock in those gains with gold and silver before the market tanks, right? And has a major correction. And that way, right, you've essentially held on to those gains and you live to fight another day. Let Trump sort out and bring back free markets. He's going to do it. It's going to take some time. There's probably going to be a major focus on American business, American companies. And that'll be the rebuilding of America, right? Everybody will get a piece of the action, and then you reinvest your money there, and boom, you'll make, you'll see opportunities like buying Apple stock back in, the 1980s for, $2.50 a share. Those are the opportunities that are about to present themselves. So I just tell people, it's like, lock in your gains, let this come down. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and live to fight another day.
Yeah. I said Neo then, but it's Mr. Smith you were talking about in the Matrix, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mr. Smith. Exactly.
Interesting what you were saying there about Cliff High and those magical properties potentially about it, and the numbers we're seeing of silver. How they're all add up to, you got AG 17, 107.9, it's a 17, it's number 47, Trump. How all these things are just nicely aligning, aren't they?
It's not a coincidence.
Right.
No such thing as coincidence. No.
So I know you're limited today with time, but I want to tell you a really heartwarming story. So
Sure.
Remember last week we were talking about this idea of like, fuck the normies. And after all, right, we were kind of like high on our horse and like, with that attitude. But I want to just send kudos out to someone. This is to my cousin, and really smart, brilliant guy, self-made. He happens to be an attorney, but one of the good ones. Anyway, he and I would get into things, and everything I said was a conspiracy, and we had like this nice little banter, not like, the craziness that you see people really like hating each other over. And when I'd go to say things, he'd be like, like he put like the buzzer, and I remember we were having a coffee maybe a couple of months ago, and he mentioned someone or something. And I was like, yeah, well, another disgusting pedophile. And he's like, is anyone not a pedophile? And he was like making fun of me, right? So I get this beautiful text from him this morning, and he's like, Elisa, I just, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he was just like, I can't believe all the things, quote, conspiracy theories that you told me about child trafficking and, all these things with everything that's coming out with the Epstein files, and like, just can't believe you had the foresight to kind of, look at this and understand that. And I'm just so humbled now that I'm seeing it. And, we started talking, and then he was also very uncertain about XRP. He had bought XRP, a good amount of it, and then he sold it. And I was like, what did you do? And he's like, I want to get back in the game. And, and I was saying, well, everybody told me I was crazy 3 years ago when I rolled over my IRA. I didn't have a lot of money, but what I had, I rolled it over. I said, and now it's like almost quadrupled, just because of what's happening. And I said, that might be, you might want to think about that too. But the point I wanted to make was that with all our big talk, when this man, someone I love, came to me, right? And we used to spar, and said like that he had found information that awakened him, so to speak, and then referred back. I felt like love, and I felt like I wanted to hug him, So I think as much as we get pissed, I think when we have people that come around and see things and they get awakened in their own way, I don't think we're going to be nasty bastards to them. Like, I just think we're pissed now. And then we say that, but it was a really heartwarming. I was really happy for him too, because I think it opened his world a little bit more and let him have a different insight into things, So of course I did feel a little vindicated. I'm not going to lie, but it was, but not in an angry way. Just,
It's a great story, and I see that a lot with people, and and we're going to see a lot more of it. And it's funny because what has to happen, I've learned, is your cousin, was it?
Yeah, it's actually George's cousin, but yeah, my cousin.
Okay, so that person that you're talking about started hearing the information that you were telling him from several other people.
Yeah,
right, and it confirms it. It confirms what you're talking, and these are probably people he respects, and says, okay, these are not, not crazy people. So when that's the key, is when they start to hear it, reverberate from others, and they hear it from this person and that person, that's where the person starts to wake up and say, there's something to this. And then they do their own research.
Right.
Then they do their own research, and voila, you have a real shot at now bringing them on with other information.
Yeah.
Maybe he locked in on the trafficking stuff and the pedophilia stuff. Well, they're going to start locking on to the banks and to this information, that information, and now they start. They as we made Matrix references. Now they're out of the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe what you were saying about 9/11 was right, Elisa, and things like that. Which is why I say never ever stop or underestimate the power of planting those seeds. Because that's a very good point, Matt. Like you say, when they hear it from someone who they think is not crazy and an intelligent person and a friend of theirs, then they start going, maybe.
And sometimes it's not even hearing it from someone they trust per se, but like he had exposure now to what's coming out in the Epstein files. So it was a very separate thing that he found. And for whatever reason, right, it's all in good time, something resonated in him and then brought him back to the conversations we had. So it's very true. Everybody has to see these things in their own time, and different things wake up different people,
100%.
But what does that mean? Does that mean like, oh, they're on our side, they're on our team? No. What it means is that when you can understand the true nature of what's really going on and how things are manipulated, then you can walk into your full power and your full sovereignty to now look at things with open eyes and say, I'm not going to fall for the bullshit, and I'm going to control my own existence based on my own research and my own sense of what I know, what my instincts are telling me. That's really why we get excited when people start to see this stuff, because they're not being bound by the indoctrination and the bullshit that we've been told all our lives.
Yeah, my friend's son, who's in his 20s, he had a get together, and I was there, and I was sitting with this, probably 22-year-old girl, and we're sitting there talking about, she actually knew some of the stuff that was going on, but in her mind, she still thought Trump was a total asshole.
Okay.
Right. But she understood some of the information about the trafficking and the adrenochrome and this and that. And the way I explained Donald Trump to her is I said, look, let's assume Trump's an asshole. I don't think he's an asshole. I think he's one of the most generous, nicest people out there. Right. Ruthless businessman. Absolutely. But let's just call him an asshole. When you understand the people who we're dealing with and the things that these people are involved in, I want the biggest fucking asshole that you could possibly find. I want the guy that talks as horribly as possible. I want the meanest tweets that you can. He's not mean enough in my book. When you understand the people that he's dealing with and the people that he's facing off against right now, that's the reality of it. And she sat there and said, you know what? That's a great point. That's exactly what we need. We need the biggest asshole we can find.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Absolutely. Definitely. I mean, look at what he did just with the stock market. You were talking all about that. He knew how to play the game, and he's done that in every way, right? He's done it with COVID, pushing all those disgusting, gross Faucis and Birx and all those people into the limelight. He's done it by, bringing Epstein into the limelight. He's done it with showing these international people, right? And he had to be in that world. He said, I was an insider, to be able to come out of that to now go after them.
Yeah. When it's like, sometimes I sit back and I say to myself, I'm like, who is Donald Trump? Who is this guy? And then you get into the books by Ingersoll Lockwood, The Adventures of Baron Trump and The Last President, 1800. The exact longitude and latitude in the book was Trump Tower in New York City. And you start to wonder, and I don't really talk about this in public, but I'll talk about it anyway. But it makes you wonder if this guy's traveling time.
Yeah.
It really does. It makes you wonder. And nothing. I will suspend disbelief because I couldn't tell you. There's definitely something much bigger going on. And when this is all revealed, I mean, I think even us who think we're pretty awake and we've seen the light, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that shocks even us.
Absolutely.
Have you seen the Trump time travel series by Jetson White?
I have not, but I'd love to see it. If you could send it to me, Stu, that would be great.
I should dig it out and find it for you. And just what I know, your time is short.
Yeah.
I remember what everyone has done, and I remember what everyone said to me. And they will get a hug, but they might get a few fucks thrown into them first before. But yeah, we're all there, open arms.
Absolutely. And one more thing about this time travel thing that's kind of interesting. We know, I say it like that, always in quotes, but when we look into the Montauk Project and we see like some of these guys who said that they were regressed back and then had different lives, that whole thing, right? So there's this technology, like however it is. But one of the things that I have in my head, which probably people are going to think I'm an absolute nut, is that we know that Trump, right? He went to military school. He did, he was sent there, and we suspect possibly that, General George Patton was his father, right? I mean, it's uncanny when you look at pictures, right? I mean, come on. But who knows if that was really a separate person?
It gets, Elisa, I've heard all about this stuff. There's that famous photo of Trump, he's the tip of the spear as a kid. As a teenager at the military school, and in the background it says "through these portals," right? Just bizarre. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, it's fun to think about. It's fun to contemplate and talk about with people.
Because we don't know. And then when they say like part of the team, there's the 10, and what is it? Three are military, or
less than 10. 3 are non-military.
A lot. How do we know he's not military?
Trump is one of the non-military men.
Maybe.
I'm not so sure. Maybe he's always been that military in that uniform, and he's just been undercover.
And I would definitely, I did go on opening night. I think it was last Friday for the Melania movie. Did you guys see it?
Yeah, I went to see it last Friday.
I was sick the weekend.
It was a real snoozer. It was a real snoozer. But my take on it was at the end when he showed the painting, the Monet, that Jackie gifted to the White House. On behalf of John.
Yeah, beautiful.
So that was like right at the end of the movie. And then I think what they're doing, my take on that movie, and I think when I expressed this to people, they thought it was a good take, is I think this is part 1, and this is going to start getting us to go to the movies to start seeing movies about what's really been happening, right? They're directing a movie. I once watched I watched an American Prophet video. American Prophet was this YouTube channel. It was Q Team. And if you were in the know and you had some understanding, they would give you these visuals and take you through this kind of like, 5, 10, 15, maybe 15 minutes, usually about 5 or 10 minutes imagery of what was going on. And they had the Witches and Warlocks, and they had the JFK Jr. returns, and they had these different series that they put out. And I remember in one of them, I could actually send this to you because it's on Rumble. YouTube took down their channel eventually, of course, but they were filming a movie. They were filming a movie at the White House. And at first, it just looks like it's Kennedy's funeral in 1963. But then when you look closely, it's actors playing, John, as a little kid with the Tiffany blue coat on.
Yeah.
So what that means is they were filming a movie at the White House ever since Trump's come into office. And the Melania movie confirms that, because we saw that Trump came out of the inauguration and they had the camera crew right there. And that was the real inauguration. So he was already filming the movie all throughout his presidency. So this signaled to me that we're going to watch the movie behind the scenes, behind the curtain of his first and second term on the silver screen. And Melania was part 1 of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love
Brilliant.
that.
Pretty unbelievable stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much as usual.
We just finish. I'll just show, because things are getting really absurd now. We just did a little 25-second clip backstage, but just have a watch of this, people. This is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It comes down to me taking out myself and my kids versus us being taken and harmed by ICE. Like, God help me, I did not want to do it. This is not the life I wanted. But that is a very dark thought that I've had. Death would be a easier out than for my children to be taken and harmed by these pedophiles.
That's crazy stuff.
Okay, so first of all, we don't know if that's psyop, right? We just don't know with any of this shit if it's planted and if it's done on purpose, right? And secondly, her children aside, right? Like, don't harm your children. But I personally think the only thing ICE would arrest her for is being hard to look at. You know what I mean? Other than that, what is she even talking about?
Yeah.
She's crazy. She's out of her mind. Sorry, I'm getting call after call. I mean, look, these are the people that, some of them can't be saved, where they say 4 to 6%.
Yeah.
This is the type of person that, you're never going to convince. It's very sad. She's obviously a very deeply disturbed person. And, it's almost like these are the people you really do have to pray for, because the only way that girl right there will ever have her life saved is literally by finding the Lord.
Yeah.
That is literally the only thing that would save her. Nothing else. There's nothing else.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What a beautiful
Well, on that note, we wish you a blessed day. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next
Thank you, guys.
week. And
Always good to be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you, Matt. Brilliant. And I've got your little 1 minute video as an outro.
Cool.
Now,
Great, guys.
All right. Say hi to Scott.
I will. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for joining people in the chat. Bye.
Your financial advisor isn't going to tell you this. Your bank won't mention it. And your 401k custodian, they're hoping you never find out. You can convert your retirement account into physical gold and silver. Real metal in your hands or stored exactly where you decide. It's called a gold IRA rollover, and it's 100% legal, 100% IRS approved. And your financial quote experts, they don't get a commission when you take control like this. Wall Street wants your money in their system, in their accounts where they control it. But physical gold, that's yours. Can't be hacked, can't be deleted, can't vanish when the market crashes. Verity Metals, we're the experts. They don't want you to call. Convert your IRA or 401k into gold and silver that you can actually hold. Call 1-888-318-7598 and quote Patriots across the pond.